My husband slammed his financial ledger onto the marble kitchen island, his eyes narrowed with a cold, calculated arrogance. Starting this month, we will each manage our own money, Colleen, he announced, his voice carrying a smug finality that echoed through our open-concept home. I'm sick and tired of supporting you while you sit back and enjoy my hard work. From now on, what's mine is mine, and what's yours is yours. We split the household bills 50-50 down to the last penny, or you can find somewhere else to live. My mother-in-law, sitting across from him, poured herself another cup of coffee, a thin, satisfied smirk playing on her lips. She didn't say a word, but her eyes screamed victory. They thought they had finally broken me. They thought I would break down, beg for his generosity, and apologize for a financial burden that didn't even exist. Instead, I calmly set down my book, looked my husband dead in the eye, and smiled. I think that's a wonderful idea, Julian, I replied smoothly. Let's start immediately. He blinked, visibly thrown off by how quickly and happily I had agreed. He had no idea that his greedy little declaration was exactly the trap I had been waiting for. He thought he was cutting off a dependent housewife. What he didn't know was that by demanding we keep our finances completely separate, he had just signed away his only ticket to a multi-million-dollar empire and guaranteed his own spectacular financial ruin. My name is Colleen. I'm 26 years old, and up until a few months ago, I believed my marriage to Julian was built on a foundation of mutual respect. We met when I was 22, a time when Julian was just an ambitious, mid-level corporate climber desperately trying to prove his worth to his wealthy, judgmental family. His mother, Eleanor, was a woman wrapped in silk and coated in passive aggression. From the very first day Julian brought me to her pristine, cold estate for dinner, Eleanor made it her personal mission to ensure I knew my place. To her, I was just a simple, struggling freelance graphic designer from a working-class background, a financial nomad who had managed to trick her golden boy into providing a comfortable life. Julian, deeply insecure and eager to appease his mother's elitist standards, slowly allowed her toxic whispers to poison his mind. He began viewing our relationship not as a partnership, but as a transaction where he was being shortchanged. The breaking point arrived on a Tuesday evening when he slammed his financial ledger onto our marble kitchen island, his jaw set with an arrogant, smug finality. Eleanor sat right beside him, sipping her tea with a sharp, victorious smirk. Julian looked down his nose at me and uttered the words that changed everything. Starting this month, we will each manage our own money. I'm sick of supporting you. He genuinely believed he was setting a trap to humble his dependent wife. He had absolutely no idea he was walking right into mine. Julian lost no time implementing his new rules with an almost sadistic precision. The very next morning, a notification pinged on my phone. He had created a shared online spreadsheet titled Household Realignment. From that moment on, our life together was reduced to cold decimals and petty mathematics. Julian insisted we split every single utility bill, the mortgage, property taxes, and even the streaming subscriptions exactly 50-50 down to the last penny. If a light bulb blew out in the hallway, he would log the $1.50 expense and expect 75 cents from me by the end of the weekend. But the real cruelty showed up in the small, everyday moments. To humiliate me and prove his financial superiority, Julian completely stopped taking me out to dinners. He began cooking lavish, high-end organic meals entirely for himself, stocking the top shelves of the refrigerator with premium steaks and expensive wines that he explicitly forbade me to touch. I was left to buy my own separate groceries, carefully budgeting for basic items while he sat across from me at the dinner table, smirking as he sliced into a prime ribeye. Throughout all of this, I played my part to perfection. I would look stressed, sigh heavily over my packed lunches, and let him believe that his sudden withdrawal of financial support was breaking my spirit. In reality, I was having the time of my life. While Julian was busy highlighting a $4.50 charge for shared paper towels on his spreadsheet, he was completely oblivious to the fact that my freelance graphic design business had quietly evolved into a massive digital branding agency. I was making more in a single week than he made in an entire year, quietly transferring my massive corporate profits into a private, untraceable business account. As I sat at my small desk watching Julian highlight a $4.50 charge for shared paper towels on his spreadsheet, I realized how quickly greed can blind a person. He was so consumed by his petty power trip that he failed to notice the calm confidence in my eyes. Before I tell you how his arrogant math completely backfired on him and his mother, follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. The quiet storm was brewing in our household, and Julian was about to walk right into a financial trap of his own making, completely unaware that his life was about to unravel. The narrative deepened, and the distance between our two financial realities grew wider by the day. Julian truly believed I was drowning in bills, but the truth was far more spectacular. My supposedly small freelance gig was actually a highly successful digital branding agency that I had built completely from scratch. Over the last 2 years, I had kept the company's explosive growth a secret, operating under a private corporate shield. I wanted to see if Julian truly loved me for who I was, or if his family's toxic obsession with wealth would ultimately ruin our marriage. His petty spreadsheet gave me a definitive answer. Just as things were getting tense at home, a major tech conglomerate offered a massive $3.2 million cash buyout for my agency. While I was quietly reviewing the buyout contracts with my corporate attorneys, Julian was making a massive mistake of his own. Desperate to outshine everyone and prove to his mother that he was a financial genius, he listened to a tip from his arrogant older brother. Julian decided to liquidate his entire life savings, along with a hefty personal loan, to invest in a volatile, unverified tech startup. He was completely convinced that this investment would catapult him into a completely different tax bracket, finally giving him the ultimate leverage to look down on me forever. He walked around our house with an unbearable air of absolute superiority, completely oblivious to the fact that he was betting his entire future on a sinking ship, while my secret multi-million-dollar empire was officially finalized. 6 months into our strict financial arrangement, the grand illusion Julian had built for himself came crashing down in spectacular fashion. The volatile tech startup he had invested his entire life savings into completely collapsed overnight due to systemic corporate fraud. It wasn't just a minor setback. Julian's accounts were completely wiped out, and he was left saddled with an immense, suffocating amount of personal loan debt. Desperate to maintain his heavy facade of luxury in front of his overbearing mother and brother, he came to me in the kitchen, clearing his throat nervously. For the first time in months, his smug demeanor vanished as he subtly tried to ask me for a financial loan to help cover his upcoming portion of the mortgage. I didn't blink. I simply pulled up his household realignment spreadsheet, looked him dead in the eye, and held him strictly to his own rules, reminding him that what's mine is mine, and what's yours is yours. To celebrate the official finalization of my multi-million-dollar corporate buyout, I decided it was time to stage the ultimate finale. I casually invited Julian, Eleanor, and his extended family out to a grand feast at the city's most exclusive 5-star restaurant. I intentionally let them believe that Julian was the one hosting and funding the entire evening, giving his bruised ego one last chance to stroke itself in front of his proud family before the inevitable breakdown. At the end of that extravagant dinner, the waiter smoothly stepped up to the table and presented an astronomical bill. Julian took the leather folder, opened it, and turned completely pale, his eyes widening in pure terror as he stared at a total he couldn't possibly pay with his overdrawn bank account. Eleanor, completely oblivious to his financial ruin, loudly announced to the table, "Well, Julian is the man of the house. He always takes such wonderful care of us." I smiled, reached into my purse, and pulled out a signed copy of their strictly enforced financial agreement alongside official divorce papers. I placed cash onto the table for exactly my personal portion of the dinner, down to the last penny, along with my half of the shared household utilities for the month. Then, I casually slid the massive remaining bill right over to Julian. I looked at his shocked family and calmly revealed my true financial status, letting them know that my agency had just been bought out for millions. The entire table paralyzed in absolute, dead silence. The realization of their self-inflicted poverty set in as Eleanor's jaw dropped, and Julian realized his petty math had officially left him completely broke. The divorce proceedings were swift, clinical, and completely devastating for Julian. Thanks to his own stubborn insistence on absolute financial separation and the legally binding agreement he had forced me to sign, his attorneys had absolutely no leverage. He couldn't touch a single penny of my $3.2 million corporate buyout because he had explicitly documented that our assets were completely separate. Julian was forced to sell his luxury car, downsize to a cramped, dingy apartment on the edge of the city, and take a grueling second job just to pay off his massive investment debts. Eleanor's smug, aristocratic attitude completely vanished overnight as she realized her toxic whispers had guided her golden boy straight into self-inflicted financial ruin. Today, I am sitting in my beautiful new penthouse apartment overlooking the city skyline, entirely accountable to no one but myself. They wanted a world where we kept exactly what was ours. In the end, Julian got exactly what he deserved: his own empty pockets and a mountain of regret. What would you have done if your spouse demanded a 50-50 split out of pure spite? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm leaving 2 other incredible storytelling videos on the screen right now that will definitely surprise you with their twists. Thank you so much for watching until the very end.